today we're learning to live the wisdom that in a quantum world it takes only one to tango. The tango, the dance of love, picture it. A couple moves seamlessly as one, seductively, sensuously, in tandem around the ballroom floor, so completely interconnected and in sync that bystanders gaze in awe upon the beauty and grace of such symmetry. What if our relationships could be that sublime? And of course, yes, they can. Now, many of us have heard the expression, it takes two to tango, meaning to have something work, both people have to play their role in it. In one sense, that may be so using ordinary logic. However, using quantum logic, if you want to improve the quality of your relationships, it really takes only one, you. You can be the activating factor with your own conscious intent for the relationship. Now, right now, we're referencing significant other in this conversation because it's romantic. Anyway, remember, you can apply what we're talking about to any relationship, business, friendship, family, anything. So let's talk quantum romance. Quantum romance, what might that be? A love affair with the quantum reality? Not a bad idea. A relationship that has leaped beyond the confines of a classical mechanical old worldview. That sounds good. Adapting the principles of quantum physics to our romantic relationships, now we're talking. Now, scientists tend to cringe at the everyday use of quantum that's fast become a popular 21st century buzzword. We've all heard it used to mean everything from the unified field itself to a healing technique, to anything akin to inexplicable weirdness and even magic. Well, maybe we could all use a little quantum magic in our relationships. If we desire to live the wisdom of a quantum reality, doesn't it make sense to have quantum romance? Divorce statistics and the proliferation of dating websites, not to mention the emotional roller coaster rides of romance that you hear in film and song, are testimony to how much we care about relationships, yet how little we know about them. The spiritual platitudes are nice. Romantic love is just a lesser aspect of the ultimate love. To love yourself, to love another, you have to love yourself. So we like those statements, but do they really help us when we're in that moment of relationship quandary? So consider, it's not what we know about relationships that's important. It's what we create in our relationships. That sounds promising. The worldview characteristics that we viewed in Lesson 7 are really more meaningful than mere words on a list, side-by-side comparison. The old worldview was a view of analysis. It's known as reductionistic, mechanistic, deterministic. In other words, let's break it all down into parts so we can figure out how this whole thing works. Now, at that stage of humanity's development, we probably needed to get things organized, figured out, and manageable. So what did we do? We collected data. We organized the data. We categorized the data. And we made conclusions based on the data, the evidence that we found, and then we proceeded to live those conclusions as the undisputed truths. Now, we forgot that we made up those interpretations and that we can make up new interpretations when appropriate. How does this apply to relationship? Think about it. We look at a person's behaviors, their actions, and what they say. We categorize and we make conclusions. He's nice. No, he's self-absorbed. She's got great energy. She's got problems. or whatever conclusions that you deem as the truth about that person. And then you interact with that arbitrary interpretation of him or her. We relate to them as if they are really that way, and then we look for evidence to back up our conclusion about how selfish someone is, or uncaring, or lovely, or whatever. So that is how the old world industrial age thinking has conditioned us, a predict and control nature. So, is your relationship suffering from classical old worldview thinking? Perhaps you've never asked yourself that question before. And what would such an old worldview relationship look like anyway? Well, from classical conditioned thinking, we tend to see our partners as fixed and predictable. You make subtle predictions like, oh, he'll never open the door for me, justified by he loves me, but he just isn't like that. Or, she'll never go down the rabbit hole with me. She knows I'm into quantum stuff, but it's just not her thing. Or, he doesn't like shopping, so I just go on my own. And you don't realize that making those predictions, you limit what your experience could be together. You're actually limiting your partner that way. Perhaps you try to push or pull your partner around, try to get them to change in a cause and effect way, or you attempt to get them to change through convincing dialogue or maybe even outright demands. So if that sounds a little too familiar to you, not to worry, we're here to take the leap to a quantum worldview. Now, we know a quantum worldview opens up infinite possibility, and thank goodness we're not stuck relating to people through our own limited viewpoints. Fortunately, we're in an observer-created reality. What you bring to your observations of other people is what you get. You can shift your interpretation, and the relational field shifts with you. We know that the first natural faculty of mind is the ever-powerful, all-powerful faculty of intent. Intent is the active dynamic of creating in an observer-created reality. How does intent work in mastering relationships? A created intent is always for the relational field, the totality of the relationship. It's not just a manipulation of how you would like the other person to be. We're connected in relational fields, and intent is an activation influence on the relational field. Then how does it take one to tango in a quantum world? Here's an example we can all relate to, I'm sure. Suppose you're feeling a little bit disconnected from your partner. And remember, you can apply what we're distinguishing to any type of relationship. So your unaware intent is thinking or feeling, we're not really connecting lately. I'm not feeling connected. Then in an observer-created reality, you will find what you're looking for. Actually, in saying this, we're not really connected these days. You're shaping your experience that way. And since we connect in relationship through the field, and this is really significant, you're actually shaping the other person's experience as well when you're resonating that. Then you start to look for evidence of the disconnection. See, I phoned her and it's been hours or days and she hasn't called me back yet. And you're building on that reality. We know that what you focus on expands. So what can you do to shift this? To generate a higher quality relationship, in this example, a more connected experience of another. first realize that your thought is not the truth. Just because you have a thought, even with evidence, your thought is not the arbiter of reality for all time. Secondly, create a new intent. How would you want your partner or friend to experience your relationship? What has any of us experienced deep connection? We all want to be loved, admired, respected, acknowledged, and appreciated, not so much for what we do, but for who we are. So suppose you create the intent that what I love about our relationship is that no matter what happens, we're always in sync. In this way, with that intent, you're conditioning the relational field consciously. And you're choosing this thought to have as your focus. No matter what happens, we're always in sync. So when you apply the faculties of mind to your relationships, what happens very quickly, it starts to become natural. And you make these subtle yet powerful shifts with ease, quickly. The important difference between thinking as an action of intellect and thinking as an act of conscious creation is this. Your intellect can analyze what you think about the partner, whether she or he is caring or whatever, and you make those kind of old worldview type conclusions that do not serve either of you, nor does it serve your relationship. However, your intent is what influence, colors, conditions, what happens in the total field of your relationship. To see this is to actually experience it, so you have to actually try it. I want to share an experience that it takes one to tango in a quantum world. A fascinating thing about dance as metaphor is that when you're really dancing, you actually experience moving as one. In traditional ballroom dancing, generally one person leads, the other follows. Well, I was a student of ballroom dancing, and I can tell you from experiencing the shift, this metaphor is perfect. When you start out dancing, you're learning the steps, and then the steps become natural. And then you're in step following the lead of your partner. And then, for me, something shifted. And the first time I actually knew what dancing was. What was the difference? There was no lead and no follow. Just two people moving seamlessly, beautifully, gracefully, ecstatically as one. So when you're dancing, you're not just taking steps in sync, you're actually flying. It's some other kind of experience. So, dear friend, next time you catch yourself in a judgment about another person, fervently looking for evidence to support your conclusion, which doesn't do anything good for your relationship, for you or the other person, remember and know this indubitably, that we can instantly move beyond the old worldview conditioning that sees the world in separate parts that one has to move around by pushing or pulling. We can move beyond psychological explanations and analysis, outside of blame, shame, and guilt and manipulation, beyond hopelessly trying to get the other person to change. It takes one to tango in a quantum world, not because you're alone, but because it only takes one to consciously condition the field of your relationship. As always, it's a great, great, great pleasure to be with you.